Brothers and sisters, let us rejoice in the Lord that He's brought us this far from the incarnation, from the feast of the Nativity of Christ, and now to the beginning as we approach Great Lent. On this Sunday, we commemorate the second coming and the last judgment. And when we hear the Apostle reading in the Gospel for today, we perhaps are amazed to hear Jesus Christ tell us for what things we will be judged. For he mentions none of those things such as we might have expected. He does not speak about those things which so agitate and exercise us in this world. He did not speak of any of those things for which we judge and condemn one another. He did not speak of any of those things which we take as an excuse for hatred or malice toward other people. Rather, he told us that first and above all we'll be judged for our relationship with each other. And for whether that relationship has to do with unselfish love or whether it has to do with selfishness and turning away from one another. For we are, of course, commanded to fast in this period of time. But Apostle Paul tells us that he would fast forever, every day of the year, if not keeping that fast would harm or cause one of the brethren to trip. Because his concern is with his brothers and sisters, and not simply with himself. For he knows that he has the liberty and freedom to do these things, but to avoid causing offense to anyone else, he would not do them until the end of the world. And our Lord Jesus Christ tells us today that our salvation depends upon our relationship with our neighbors. We so often excuse ourselves from the true meaning of the gospel and try to hide once more behind law. We excuse ourselves for violating the deepest precepts of the commandments of God, hiding behind a code of some kind, or boasting that our external behavior is almost as perfect as that of the Pharisees who challenged Christ in his own time. But we do not pay attention to the deeper points of the law, love and mercy, and care for others, and co-suffering love, and remembering that those are righteous who have mastered the higher principles of love itself, and that those are unrighteous who think that they're righteous according to law, according to codes, according to rules or regulations. But what is it that ultimately does separate us on that day of judgment, when the light of the glory and the love of Christ shines into every heart? The darkness of hearts which turn away from the light, because in this life they prefer darkness rather than light, so that they can cloak their egotism and their selfishness and their self-centeredness. But this is what the Holy Fathers have told us, St. Cyril of Jerusalem and others, that what is that judgment except that when the light shines into the guilty heart, as St. Abba Isaac the Syrian says, no sin is greater than the sin against love, and no offense burns more deeply than the sin against love. And this is what we truly will be judged for. We say we believe, but we can believe in a way that makes us 3 times more dead than those who have no belief. We can be more in darkness than those who claim not to believe at all, because they have not so much fled from a light which they knew. But those of us who say we believe and do not do have turned ourselves away from the light and have tried to hide from it, and for a pretense, pretend that we are somehow more moral and more righteous than others. No one will enter into the heavenly kingdom, and no one will look upon the face of the living God who has not worried first at all about his relationship with his neighbors, with other human beings, who has not cared, who has not embraced, who has not concerned, who has not opened his heart toward other human beings. For what is it that makes us hate except fear? And what is it that we fear in others? We fear in others the reflection of ourselves that we see in them. It is not that we hate other people, but that we hate our own reflection that we see in them. Because even if we try to hide from it, we know our own heart. Our Lord Jesus Christ has called upon us now to think about all these things and to consider above all, how do we feel? How does our heart react? How do our eyes respond when we see those who are desperate, when we see street people, when we see those who are without a home, and are without a home not through their own fault, for those who are suffering from the demons we call psychiatric illnesses in their minds, and so are consigned to the streets and to great poverty, and sometimes seek drugs just to ease their misery and their suffering. How are we not going to be judged when we ignore or walk past, or have no response, or have no openness of heart to others? Brothers and sisters, let us not hide behind the idolatry of our own self-esteem. Let us not hide behind the idolatry of codes and laws and rules and regulations, but come out into the full light of the love of our Lord Jesus Christ and assimilate that to ourselves, because surely that is the very thing that we will be judged for on that day when the secrets of men's hearts will be revealed. And St. Abba Isaac again reminds us that it is the sin against love that condemns one to the outer darkness. And it is the embracing of that love which opens the gates of paradise to those who truly believe.